pretty sure all of us have wondered, what if Toji had raised Megumi instead of Gojo? We all know that Toji asked Gojo to raise Megumi because he wanted him to stay away from the Zenin family. However, in this scenario, Toji decided to raise him like a dad instead of going out to get milk. Without any further ado, let's dive right into it. In our first theory, Toji Fushiguro decides to raise his son Megumi far from their influence. He sees the Zenin family as a poisonous environment and resolves to teach Megumi to survive on his own, free from their expectations. Toji raises Megumi in a nomadic, almost mercenary lifestyle. They avoid major sorcerer hubs, moving frequently between rural towns and cities. Toji trains Megumi in survival skills, how to fight, adapt, and read people. Though Toji is indifferent to cursed energy himself, he recognizes Megumi's innate talent and helps him master his 10 Shadows technique, focusing on practical application rather than tradition. Under his father's teachings, Megumi develops a unique hybrid combat style, blending sorcery with Toji's physical prowess and unpredictability. He might not become as strong as Toji, since he isn't bound by the heavenly restriction, but he will be a huge threat to anyone who faces him, even though he won't be able to master the 10 Shadows technique like the original timeline, where he had access to the Zenin clan's documents, owing to Gojo's influence. Despite this, Megumi will become an exceptional hand-to-hand combat expert. In the original timeline, Megumi lacked a lot when it came to hand-to-hand combat. However, in this timeline, he'll be a beast in that sector. As Megumi grows, he begins taking on small missions with Toji, who selects tasks that are profitable yet relatively safe. These experiences hone Megumi's skills and expose him to the moral complexities of the world. Unlike Toji, Megumi develops a quiet sense of justice, secretly helping others when Toji isn't looking, subtly diverging from his father's cold outlook. Years later, during a mission, Megumi's actions to protect civilians catch the attention of Satoru Gojo, now a formidable sorcerer. Recognizing Megumi's potential and his connection to the Zenin family, Gojo offers him a chance to leave the fugitive life and join Jujutsu High. While Toji initially resists, Megumi chooses to join, driven by a desire to use his abilities for a larger purpose. Toji reluctantly agrees, ensuring Megumi understands the risks of the sorcerer world. Megumi's time at Jujutsu High contrasts with his unconventional childhood. In the structured environment, he thrives, but his choices reflect Toji's teachings, remaining skeptical of authority, valuing independence, and standing firm in his beliefs. Although Megumi distances himself from his father's shadow, Toji continues to watch over him secretly, ensuring he stays clear of the Zenin family's grasp. As their lives take different directions, the story hints at a future confrontation or alliance between father and son, driven by shared enemies. We might see their collaboration during the Shibuya arc, but I guess Toji's presence would completely turn the tides of the battle. We already know that he's strong enough to defeat special grade curses on his own. I guess Kinjaku will have to seal him as well. In the previous theory, we assume that Toji raises Megumi, who eventually ends up joining the Jujutsu High under Gojo. However, in this second theory, things are a bit different. In this timeline, Megumi and Toji grow close as the story progresses, and Megumi develops a close bond with Toji. The story will proceed just like the original timeline, in which Toji raises Megumi away from the Zenin family. The Zenin clan, however, recognizes Megumi's potential, but as long as Toji is with him, they can't do anything. To get rid of him, they conspire against him. Toji, while undertaking a high-stakes mission to eliminate a powerful sorcerer, is ambushed by Jujutsu High forces led by Satoru Gojo. Following an intense battle, Toji is overwhelmed and captured due to a betrayal from a client who provided false intelligence about the mission's risks. The Zenin clan, aware of Toji's capture, exerts pressure on the Jujutsu elders to use his execution as a public statement, erasing Toji's defiance from their history. Megumi, who had been raised by Toji in secrecy and trained to survive in a harsh world, learns of his father's capture through underground channels. Despite their complex relationship, Toji was the only family Megumi ever knew, and his death leaves a void filled with rage. Fueled by grief and a desire for vengeance, Megumi dedicates himself to becoming a powerful sorcerer, surpassing the expectations of both his father and the Zenin clan. He holds the Zenin clan responsible for their betrayal, and Gojo accountable for failing to understand the complexities of Toji's life. To change the system that contributed to his father's death, Megumi secretly targets Zenin operatives in an attempt to weaken their influence from within. He also observes Jujutsu High from the shadows, studying their vulnerabilities. He keeps his distance from other students to not make them suspicious. Since he was trained by Toji, Megumi is strong enough to take down Zenin clan members by himself. He eventually gains access to the information regarding the 10 Shadows technique and commences his training to master it. As Megumi seeks revenge, he starts facing tough choices. His actions, though driven by grief and anger, begin to look like the cruelty of the Zenin clan and the cold logic of his father. Meeting sorcerers at Jujutsu High shows him the good they do, making him question his path. The turning point comes when he discovers a bigger plot in the Jujutsu world, one that goes beyond his father's death and puts innocent lives at risk. Megumi must decide whether to stay on his destructive path or rise above his anger to protect others, honoring his father's memory in a new way. In the final act, Megumi confronts Gojo, not just as a foe, but as someone seeking answers. Their battle is fierce, filled with raw emotion, as Megumi challenges the man who was both Toji's greatest rival and in some ways a potential ally. However, the fight is interrupted by the larger threat Megumi uncovered, forcing forcing them to work together to save countless lives. Through this shared struggle, Megumi gains a deeper understanding of his father's complexities and Gojo's role in the sorcerer world. In the end, he chooses to break the cycle of hatred, dedicating himself to ensuring that no one else suffers the same fate as his father, an act of defiance against both the Zenin clan and the darker impulses Toji instilled in him. In this scenario, he ends up joining the Jujutsu High under Gojo because he wants to help him restore peace and reform the Jujutsu society. In the previous theories, we assume that Toji decides to raise Megumi away from the Zenin clan. However, things are slightly different in this third theory. In this alternate reality, we will assume that Toji will remain a part of the Zenin clan. He knows that the Zenin higher-ups are after Megumi's 10 Shadows curse technique, and he wants him to lead the Zenin clan. Toji raises Megumi within the Zenin clan, ensuring that he receives rigorous training from the best instructors, while keeping his influence over his son strong. Megumi grows up learning the cutthroat politics of the Zenin family, understanding that power is the only language they respect. Under Toji's guidance, Megumi becomes a prodigy, mastering his Shikigami and honing his combat skills to levels that surpass expectations. Meanwhile, Toji uses Megumi's successes to secure his position within the clan. Despite being a non-cursed user, his reputation as an unparalleled fighter combined with Megumi's rise earns him reluctant respect. Toji begins eliminating or discrediting key rivals in the Zenin hierarchy, solidifying their control. In the previous scenarios, Megumi's mastery over the 10 Shadows wasn't that strong because he didn't have access to the ancient documents. However, in this scenario, things are a lot different. He eventually joins the Jujutsu High, where he further hones his skills under Gojo's guidance. Even though he respects Gojo as a teacher, Toji's influence over him is way too overwhelming. After some time, Toji realizes they cannot rule over the Jujutsu world as long as Gojo Satoru is alive, and there's no other option but to kill him. He also knows they cannot just get rid of the strongest sorcerer like that, even though Megumi is pretty overpowered himself. Gojo, on the other hand, has realized Toji's ambitions, and knows that he is a direct threat to the balance of the Jujutsu world. He also recognizes Megumi's potential and feels a responsibility to free the boy from Toji's manipulative grasp. This sets the stage for an inevitable confrontation between Toji and Gojo. The Zenin clan, wary of Gojo's influence, rallies behind Toji, believing he's their best chance to counter Gojo's overwhelming power. Megumi, caught between loyalty to his father and the growing awareness of his own moral compass, begins to question the cost of their pursuit of power. Gojo confronts the Zenin clan to stop Toji's growing influence. Toji, refusing to back down, challenges Gojo directly, seeing him as the last obstacle in his way. Their battle is fierce, Toji's unmatched physical skill clashing with Gojo's overwhelming cursed energy and techniques. Megumi, torn between his loyalty to his father and his own sense of right and wrong, watches the fight. As Toji begins to lose, he orders Megumi to step in. However, Megumi, struggling with his father's choices, decides to protect Gojo instead, choosing not to follow the path of destruction. Realizing Megumi's decision, Toji accepts it with a bitter smile. Rather than letting Gojo strike the final blow, Toji sacrifices himself to give Megumi a chance to escape the Zenin clan. After the fight, Gojo spares Megumi and offers to guide him, helping him break free of his father's shadow. Megumi, motivated by Toji's sacrifice, dedicates himself to becoming strong, not to control others, but to protect those that cannot protect themselves. In the aftermath, the Zenin clan begins to collapse from internal conflict. Under Gojo's mentorship, Megumi grows into a powerful sorcerer who uses his abilities for good. He carries his father's strength while choosing a path of compassion, becoming a bridge between the Zenin clan's dark past and a better future. That's it, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you next time. Bye!